That famous phrase, the shot heard around the world, comes from the poem about Concord Bridge, where the first British soldier fell who dared to disarm the American people on April 19th, 1775. Here once the embattled farmer stood, goes the poem, and fired the shot, heard round the world. Now the statue of the farmer Minuteman, who stands on that spot today, has not yet become the target of political mobs, but the young man named in this legal complaint was targeted and is now targeted by political mobs with a hostile agenda. Kyle Rittenhouse is being charged with criminal homicide by the state of Wisconsin. Now, of course, magistrates in every city or state have a duty to investigate every homicide which occurs in their jurisdiction and apply impartial justice as the remedy. What's the just remedy for intentional murder driven by malice aforethought? It's capital punishment. But if a homicide is justifiable, the accused is pronounced innocent of murder and then released. The trial for Kyle Rittenhouse will decide this question about 2 engagements that left 2 men dead, and he'll be tried on 4 other counts as well. And this really will be a historic trial, an historic event, and the whole world will be watching. Yes, they've seen the shots that were fired in this. They want to know what's going to happen. Now, the trial has not yet been scheduled, not even started yet. So why has the American media already tried Kyle and found him guilty of criminal murder? Why have they been so desperate over the last 72 hours to conceal and hide and twist and misdefine and deliberately distort the facts of the case in a dishonest effort to achieve a political outcome in the case? Their apparent hostile intention is to see that this young man gets an unfair trial and spends his life in prison. And so why is this urgency to condemn Kyle in the court of public opinion? Why are they in such a hurry? Let me point out 2 reasons. Number 1, this case is unique in the history of jurisprudence. Never in the history of high-stress firearm death has there been as much video documentation and video evidence of the events surrounding the shootings. The media, and this is why the media is racing now to present their dishonest version of the video evidence, because the preponderance of footage on their cutting room floors tells a story that is far different from their fake political narrative. And so they need to influence our minds and our opinions before we get to see all the footage. They've seen the video evidence. They've deliberately and dishonestly concealed it, cut it out, gotten rid of it. And they're purposefully telling us now what we're supposed to think about Kyle. USA Today wants to persuade us that we all are afraid of him and Americans like him, that guns and militias should be our worst fear in the whole world. And this is why both words are being redefined into pejoratives. Now, of course, they've been doing this for 15, 20, 25 years, but it's really heating up. And this case is bringing many things to the forefront that will be discussed all over the world. The second reason the media is rushing to judgment: Kyle is a symbol of something the left considers so dangerous it must be chased down and destroyed, in much the same way that a Kenosha mob pursued Kyle on August 25th. And here's why he's dangerous. He's a young, thinking citizen with a lawfully deployed firearm. And so in the name of journalism, the media is pressing politically correct false narratives, conditioning us to want young thinking citizens with lawfully deployed firearms to go straight to prison. And also in the name of journalism, the dominant media is deliberately manipulating reality. They're attaching motives and fabricated character descriptions to the people, the real people involved in the story. They are defining certain actions that happened on August 25th as crimes before a court of justice has even ruled on those actions. And so if this kind of thing continues, the American people will be permanently confused about American jurisprudence and due process. The media cannot be doing this kind of thing. The real people involved in the case will be turned into fictional versions of themselves. Fake news will force fake justice, which is really just an illusory justice mandated by political partiality. And so what I want to do right now is put 22 observations on the table in public, and what I'm about to read off here is nothing really but an objective description of video images, which have already been seen worldwide. Now, the media has not been able to put a lid on everything. They have circulated all through the independent media. These are 22 well-known facts that the media should honestly acknowledge and stop censoring and trying to get rid of. They should simply and honestly just define what is there in the way that I will try to be doing right now. These observations from available visual evidence do not prove, and I'm not trying to, try Kyle Rittenhouse right now myself. These descriptions do not prove the guilt or the innocence of Kyle or his attackers. The observations simply establish the context of the evening's chaotic developments. A jury of Kyle's peers will have to evaluate all presented evidence and then decide if the state of Wisconsin has proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that Kyle intended to commit first-degree criminal murder. And in the meantime, America really must not fall victim to the media's abuse of established definitions of the English language, legal terminology, and the processes of jurisprudence. So here we go. First observation. Kenosha County had been ravaged by criminal mob violence and arson for 48 hours, a full 48 hours before the August 25th incident. Number two, I'm going to go through these really fast. County authorities were not containing the destruction or enforcing existing laws, including curfews. Number three, Kyle traveled approximately 1/2 hour from his home to help clean up damage done by destroyers of property, to render first aid to injured people, and to try to prevent further damage to private and public property. Number four, Wisconsin firearms law. And these are just the kinds of things the media should simply put out there. The laws are on the books. The legislatures have written these. Now, granted, some of the language is really confusing and not very well written, but it's still the law on the books, and you can just simply report on it. This law, firearms law, provides for open carry of loaded rifles and pistols for those 18 or older, not otherwise prohibited from possessing firearms, and for those 16 and older who are eligible for open carry of loaded rifles. All right, these are the laws, and these are the laws that will be discussed in the trial, in the courtroom, when they try to discern what laws has Kyle broken. Number five, a small group of lawfully armed citizens assembled the night of the 25th to support law enforcement there in Kenosha and to protect businesses and private property which had not yet been destroyed by arson. Number six, although the armed citizens were angrily taunted and provoked by rioters, this defense collective, and that's what I'll be calling it in this message here, it's not a real legal militia. It's not even the unorganized militia, because the state of Wisconsin is so confused about it. The mayor of Kenosha is so confused about it. But they are citizens of the city. They got together. They're armed. They're a collective. They're a defensive collective. They're not trying to go out and hunt people down and shoot people. They're just trying to guard property and protect themselves in doing it, because the mob in Kenosha is extraordinarily violent and destructive. And they stood their ground as they did this. And their video evidence shows them doing this, even when they're provoked. They de-escalated tension until rioters moved off to an unguarded business and property to burn it and to smash windows from this one point in this one video. They couldn't get a rise out of the armed citizens. They couldn't provoke them to violence. They couldn't get them to join in violence and chaos and mayhem. And so after a while, they just left and went to a business, a car dealership, to bust out the windows and try to set things on fire. Three of the rioters, number seven, three of the rioters in phone video footage appear to be seen later in videos assaulting Kyle. Now, we have to be careful about what we say in the parallels that we draw visually. But when you look closely and you put this video up in video editing programs, and you can slow it down. You can speed it up. You can push in on it tight. They appear to be assaulting Kyle, people that we've seen earlier in the evening. And it appears that they were perceiving Kyle to be alone and separated from the safety of the group, and then just fell on him. Number eight, 17-year-old Kyle, like all of the other real people in these videos who were there in history, at a point in history, a point in time, a geographic location there in Kenosha, Wisconsin. They have names. They have histories. They have a background that can be checked into. And the media should be doing its duty and its job to try to do that. Kyle has a reputation in his hometown. He's known in his hometown community as a law-abiding, responsible, aspiring first responder. He has pursued basic training in fields of law enforcement, emergency medicine, firefighting, and the responsible handling of personal firearms. Attempts to assist the people of Kenosha would not have been out of character for him at all, nor would venturing into a situation as dangerous as that of the rioting and looting environments of Kenosha. His attorney states that Rittenhouse borrowed an AR carbine from a Wisconsin friend to take with him into the danger zones of mob rioting and did not transport weapons across state lines. It appears that, and that's, the media is making wild accusations about things that they don't understand and they don't have the facts for, because they won't simply look and inquire and try to find out. It appears that Kyle did not carry additional magazines, typical of perpetrators bent on mass homicide. He's been accused of wanting to do that, hunt people down, hunt humans down, and kill them. And the media should know they've covered people who actually have done that and wanted to kill as many people as possible. And they didn't just go out with one magazine as Kyle did. They had whole chest rigs full of mags, or backpacks full of magazines, along with their weapons. Number 10, Kyle reportedly made himself and his intentions known to local police on the 25th. The Citizen Defense Collective that we've referred to interacted with police on peaceful terms the evening of the 25th. Why? They were law-abiding citizens trying to do what the police is doing, preserve and protect and the property and the lives of other people. Number 11, Kyle openly disclosed his peaceful intentions to a reporter in a video interview the night of the incident, articulately and straight to camera. You could see him. He's not ashamed of what he's doing in any way. Number 12, the available video evidence clearly introduces all 5 people referenced in the complaint that I showed you at the top of this message. The complaint lists their names. The 3 injured or mortally wounded by Kyle happen to, now this is really important and most of the media is not reporting this, they happen to share the same names and ages of convicted criminals. Now you'll notice that I'm trying not to presume or jump to conclusions in the same way that the media is. I'm not saying that these dead men and the third man who had his elbow blown up are criminals. I'm saying that the attorneys who've looked into their background, looked at their name and their age and their address, have found that there are people with the exact same name, age, and address who have really deep criminal records. Anthony Huber, who was shot in the chest, recently pled guilty to felony charges, felony crimes, strangulation and suffocation, felony false imprisonment, and has been charged with other crimes, a long list of other crimes. Gage P. Grosskreutz pled guilty to a charge of going armed with a firearm while intoxicated, and then was told you may not go out with a firearm. And that night, yes, of the 25th, he had one, and was apparently planning to use it. There have been quotes by him since that he wishes that he had emptied the entire magazine into Kyle. Now, is he being accurately quoted by his friends who've spoken to him on the phone? We don't know yet that for sure. Other charges against Gage include felony burglary, misdemeanor theft, misdemeanor criminal trespass, misdemeanor disorderly conduct. Grosskreutz may be connected with something called the People's Revolution movement. Okay, are you with me? Joseph D. Rosenbaum was ordered to be listed in the lifelong sex offender registration database in Wisconsin for his Arizona conviction on 2 counts of sexual conduct with a minor in 2002. He's the first one who rushed Kyle and was incapacitated by rounds from Kyle's weapon. Rosenbaum was sentenced to 10 years in prison. He did do time in the prison. During his incarceration, he racked up dozens of corrections institute disciplinary violations for offenses including assault with a weapon, assault on staff, arson. Let me say that one again. Arson and possession of narcotics. Number 13. Joseph Rosenbaum, a Joseph Rosenbaum. Is it the same criminal? We'll find that out in the trial. But a Joseph Rosenbaum, the same age, was the first assailant who attacked Kyle. Kyle retreated, but Rosenbaum continued to charge Kyle at full speed, apparently cursing at him, cornering him, and only going down after being incapacitated, taking 3 rounds from Kyle's rifle. 2 other rounds were grazing rounds. No other people were harmed from those shots from Kyle's rifle. Kyle moved away from the scene, number 14, toward local police vehicles. Video evidence shows that he was vacating the area and in no way showing a hostile or belligerent attitude toward the growing mob. Number 15, as Kyle retreated away from the scene of the conflict, he was chased by a mob of at least a dozen individuals. That's basically all we can see in the video. Was physically struck and was then attacked in a frenzy when he tripped and fell to the ground. 16, by this time, Kyle, you can see, he's been running, and you can see the timestamps on these videos. It's so amazing. Even sometimes in the videos, you can see another smartphone in the picture with its timestamp on it. So you can put all these things together and see what transpired over a period of time. This is an unprecedented level of documentation, video documentation, some of it in pretty high resolution and all of it in color. He was not showing a hostile or belligerent attitude toward the growing mob. Now, by the time that he had this next altercation in which another man was killed, Huber was killed, and Grosskreutz was blasted in the arm, he had been running for quite a while. He was clearly under stress of having been pursued and chased and battered by an angry mob. At least 4 attackers closed in on him when he fell. One assailant attempted a running kick to the head, and Huber struck him and then tried to gain control of Kyle's weapon. Kyle aimed a center mass shot at Huber and then aimed his weapon at Grosskreutz, who feigned surrender, put his hands up, before attacking Kyle again with his firearm. Kyle fired, wounding Grosskreutz in the arm, at which point Grosskreutz retreated. Number 17, Rittenhouse was presented with a series in this whole evening, a whole series of shoot or no shoot situations. This means there were choices. I mean, he had his rifle up, he had ammo in his gun, he had his finger near his trigger, not always on the trigger, because that's dangerous. He had discipline for where he would put his muzzle direction and where he would put his trigger. He fired his weapon under threat of dangerous close personal contest and showed restraint when attackers backed off. He showed restraint when attackers backed off, and this will be explained in great detail in the trial. Even when the wounded Grosskreutz refused to drop his handgun, Kyle did not put him down with a lethal round. And you could see that he was retreating and crying and whining a bit about calling for a medic, etc. Number 18. After Huber and Grosskreutz were neutralized, other would-be attackers that you can see in the video, within close range, within really close range of his carbine, finally backed off. One carried a large blunt instrument. One raised his hands. Kyle did not fire. They were right in his sights. He did not fire. They were not a threat, an immediate threat, an imminent threat. Number 19, Kyle did not run from police, but directed them to the injured parties. Kyle did not run from accountability to the law, but fully cooperated with authorities in his hometown. Number 20, Kyle will be tried in Wisconsin under Wisconsin law on 6 separate counts to determine if he illegally caused death recklessly or criminally, or if he acted in lawful and necessary self-defense. The media has not shown that as one of the outcomes of the trial, or how the defense attorneys will be arguing for that on his behalf. They're not mentioning that. They're pushing for a predetermined verdict against him. Number 21. Kyle and his defense attorneys will make a strong argument that he was of the reasonable and rational belief that deadly force was necessary, and this is the language that's in the Wisconsin Code, was necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm to himself. And in Wisconsin and many other jurisdictions, this is lawful self-defense. This is what makes self-defense lawful in these circumstances. And it's otherwise known as justifiable homicide if someone, an assailant in the situation, dies. 22. The media should be pointing these things out and modeling this in their conduct, in their professional conduct. America's system of justice requires the presumption of innocence until defendants are proven to be guilty of violating duly enacted laws. The media is not doing this for Kyle. Like I said earlier, they've already tried him in their boardrooms. They consider him to be guilty and absolutely in need of being locked up for life. Now, these are the kinds of objective and historical observation an honest media would report if they were honest. There's a lot more at stake in this trial than simply what happens to Kyle Rittenhouse, and the political left knows this. The deliberate mishandling of truth by the media, the continued mishandling of truth, really could set America up for total failure in handling the current debates about alleged police brutality that we really do need to have, the insurrection and the mobs and where they come from, government responsibility and citizen responsibility. And so here's my prediction about what's coming up. The shots seen around the world, people have seen these all over the world. What will they learn during the trial? I predict that the media will refuse to cover Kyle's defense. They will cover up important developments. I predict that Kyle's legal team will do a really good job, not only to defend Kyle's responses as lawful and expose the lethal revolutionary character of the mob, but I believe they will also introduce forgotten legal and historical principles into the proceedings, like the necessity of an armed citizenry, the historic value of the armed citizenry, and the legal definitions of the unorganized militia and the organized militia. I think the entire world will be amazed if they can get access to what's really going on in alternative media sites by what they hear about what they have already seen in all of those videos. Now, let me give some final advice to all of you who stuck around this long to the end. If your friends want you to join the self-righteous mob and burn businesses to the ground, do not be part of that group. If you have friends who want you to join a hot-headed gang with AR-15s, that is not the lawful militia. Don't be a part of that group. If you need to defend your community from violence and destruction, and you really might, be careful about your defensive collective, the people that you join, the people that you put together. You may create the team yourself. Make sure it has responsible, recognizable leadership, high-level weapons discipline, and good internal-external radio communication. You've got to have that. Coordinate the very best you can with the authorities. I hope they will cooperate with you and you with them. Educate them in the process. It would be a phenomenal opportunity for you to teach them what you've learned. Educate them in this process. And when you come face to face with the mob, do not respond to provocation from them. And whatever happens in the chaos of a riot, do not let yourself be separated from the safety of your team. Because if the mob hates you, it only takes a couple of criminals in the mob to kill you. And there are people in these mobs who literally do believe that they can get away with murder and will get away with murder.